I don't know where you guys are, and everyone who's come in here has stated some kind of emotional feelings, emotional response to the last couple of days. And I know last night I sat and I listened to Trump give his farewell address, and it just kind of really, I was in tears just listening to it, and also kind of marveling about the level of humility he's entered into, and kind of marveling at the level of love that was being expressed in what he had to say. There was not one unkind word, which is what he's, namely known for, is unkind words. And I thought, man, out of the one place where he could really stick it to him, he chose not to. And I really feel like one of the things that has been mentioned over and over with Trump was that the Lord was going to change his heart, and we've seen this gradually begin to happen with him. And so, anyways, as I concluded the video, Brady looks at me and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling some feels, I'm feeling some feels over that. And everyone who had come in here was also expressing some of those feelings. And so last night, right before I went to bed, it was the weirdest sensation, you guys, because I didn't see an angel, but I sensed an angel, and it came suddenly and it shocked me. Like if a large 8-foot, 7-foot tall man just all of a sudden was standing right next to you, that's how it felt. And I went like this, and I said, okay, Lord, I'm open for whatever you have for me tonight. Like I'm ready to hear whatever you've got. And thinking that it would be one of those nights where I'd be in and out of intercession all night, which was the complete opposite of what happened. I ended up crashing, and I woke up this morning with a knowing. I just woke up and I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. What I woke up with this morning was the story of Elijah. And I just felt like the Lord was saying to me, when Elijah came and he confronted the prophets of Baal, when he did that, there were 500 prophets hiding in caves. And the Lord said to me, are you going to be those who hide in the cave, or are you going to be like Elijah and confront this thing? And it was like he was asking the question, knowing what my answer was. We've been prepared for this season. And just now, as I was reading up a little bit on the history of Elijah, one of the things we talk about sometimes when we talk about Elijah is we don't know where he came from. Typically, there's some level of like, oh, he came from here or whatever, and all we know he's a Tishbite, right? That's pretty much all we've got. But what the Lord began to speak to me is that Elijah emerged in the season that he emerged. It was like he first emerges in 1 Kings 17, and there's a couple of like minor things that happen. He helps with the widow who needs some food, and he has a confrontation with Ahab. Now, what's interesting in the confrontation with Ahab is that Elijah. How are we doing, guys? You can't hear me here. It's just recording. So, yeah. So, in the confrontation with Ahab, this is when Ahab comes to him and accuses him and says, "You troubler of Israel." And this is the second story that we have about Elijah, right? And that's when Elijah looks at him and says, "I'm not the troubler of Israel. You are, because you have forsaken the commands of God and you have gone after the gods of Baal." And it's just this clear statement about where the lines have been drawn, and clearly speaking exactly what needs to be said. And then the next thing you know is that he says, "Gather together for me your prophets of Baal, and I will meet them up on the mountain." And that's when we had the major confrontation that Elijah's known for, right? In other words, Elijah didn't have this major track record before he took down thousands of prophets of Baal. What he had was a kind of a small track record, and he kind of had like this just complete confidence in the word of the Lord. And the Lord just said to me, he said, "It is time for you guys to continue what you started on 4th of July. Jezebel was driven out from here, and she is now trying to take her last stand in Washington, D.C. Will you guys finish what you started on 4th of July?" And here I was, I didn't really see. I saw like that our part of the job was done, right? Because the part of our job was Oregon had the prophetic word to see Jezebel come down. We did the 24-hour conference, and the Lord spoke to me and he said, "Will you stand on this promise? Will you stand?" Because he said, it's not going to be easy. There are going to be people recanting left and right. He said there are going to be people spewing doubt left and right. And he said, you are going to be considered fools. But he said, will you stand and will you pray and will you continue to contend for this word? Because it is my word and I want to see it come to pass. And I am looking for a remnant like Reese Howells had a remnant. And Reese Howells keeps coming up and up over and over and over again because Reese Howells was, even though he was the leader, he had a small contingent, right? Do you guys remember how many Reese Howells had? I think it was like 15 or 16 people that he operated with. Okay, I'll have to go back and look, but if I recall correctly, it was a very small group of people. It was like 15 or 16, and really, when you read the book, you see how these 15 or 16 people were the ones that were dictating the outcome of World War II, dictating whether or not we were going to be a world that was had Nazi communist propaganda throughout or not, whether or not freedom was going to ring or not. And I feel like what the Lord is giving FireHouse an invitation, and that invitation is to continue to keep this place open day after day through the end of February in prayer and intercession, not only for the nation, but something that's happening right now with the prophets. See, when Elijah stood and he began to call down fire regarding the prophets of Baal, and he began to see that was taken care of. What he was also doing was making a place for the other prophets. And it's part of our job is that I'm seeing more and more that if we are going to take seriously the prophetic word that we are an eagle's nest for prophets, we have to start we have to take ourselves seriously as the people who are in an eagle's nest, right? So it means radical faith. It means radical obedience. It means I find myself, I did something really weird. Those of you who know me know that I'm a Starbucks girl. I went to go get a cup of coffee today, and the Lord said, are you going to go to Starbucks? And I just felt like in my spirit that I needed to start putting my money in places that I felt confident about, which is not something that I had a conviction about until this morning. And I feel like there's so much shifting out of seasons of peace into a season of war that he's causing us to come into. Like I have the Lord gave me a really interesting way to fast. Coming up, I'm going to be fasting in February. And the way he told me to fast was by eating only meat and vegetables, which is funny because that's kind of like the opposite of a Daniel fast. Like a Daniel fast was not meat. You know what I'm saying? But he said only meat and vegetables. So I'm like going to be eating only meat and vegetables in February. And this morning when I woke up, the Lord said the reason for that is because Paul says in I can't remember which book, but he talks about how in the end times they will say not to eat meat, right? There's something to be said about, there's some people who say that eating meat actually gets your body ready for spiritual warfare. And isn't it interesting that the Lord would say, this is the type of fast that I want you to have, only eating meat and vegetables for the month of February, because we're about to move into a month, I think, where we're really going to be, we're in the season now, but I think the Lord's saying you're coming into a time of real spiritual warfare. And I think that even last night I was watching Lance Wallnau, and I love Lance, don't get me wrong, but I think that there's even a little bit of like kind of stepping backwards, a little bit of backpedaling that's happening. And I think that the best thing for us to do is to be really careful about which voices we're listening to right now, and continue to be really strong about how we stand. And really, I think that the Lord wants to make this a sanctuary for us to believe the promises of God, to go after the promises to God, and to take seriously the call of God over us. Because we may not be known like Elijah was known. We may have had just a few successes like Elijah has had. We've had the success with our 4th of July conference. We've had successes of there's just been a consistent theme over Firehouse from the very beginning. The Revelations chapter 2. Are you going to tolerate that woman Jezebel, or are you not? And our consistent theme has been, we will not tolerate that woman Jezebel. And so I think it's really important that what we've done in this house is that we've designed it particularly to make sure that that spirit cannot have a place. And because of that, we're uniquely equipped by God to go after this thing. And so I feel like I felt like a real call to war this morning. I really did. I felt like with you saying marching around with your sword, I felt a call to war this morning. And I'm really excited because I can feel like we have the ability to hold the tension of recognizing. I believe this body can hold the tension of recognizing that being called to war doesn't mean that we're warring against those who are Biden supporters. We're warring against that Jezebel spirit that is attempting to take out our nation and to silence the voice of the prophets. And that is our role in the fight. And other people in the nation, I think, will have other roles. I think that there'll be probably places that will be called to war over Leviathan right now. I think there'll be places that are called to war over, justice, and roar over all these different things. But our particular assignment from God right now is to war over that Jezebel spirit. And it's because, and I woke up with just this clarity of understanding that we're coming in, next month will be 2 years, Firehouse was started. And for this entire 2 years, I know that me, the leadership, and many people here at Firehouse, we have been trained, like almost like sharpshooting trained, to know what that spirit looks like, how it operates, what it does, and to not tolerate it. And so consequently, I feel like the Lord's saying, you guys are equipped for this war. You're ready to go. And I feel like I feel good about that. So yeah, questions.
Another part of that prophecy was that after we took down Jezebel in this state, that we were to take it to the nation.
Okay, see, I did not know that, and I am so glad. I'm going to say this on the mic just so those who are listening online. What Dottie just said was that the prophetic word that Dutch Sheets delivered in Oregon and Chuck Pierce in what year again? 2004? In their 50-state tour of 2003 was that Oregon would take down Jezebel and then we would take it to the... And I didn't know that. I knew that the next step was that then she would be weakened for the nation, but I didn't realize that the next step was that so that's just the Lord, right? That's just the Lord confirming that that's the right course of action for us. And I feel like the Lord's saying that I feel so much pleasure from the Lord. I really do. I feel like he's like, you guys are ready for this. You guys have been training for this. You're prepared for this. I feel like a military general today. I really do. Like what do I need to do? Let's get roaring over this. I keep saying roar instead of war, but I think that's prophetic. So, he's roaring in the spirit, exactly. And so I'm like really thrilled to hear that that's the confirmation to what I was hearing too. So exactly. You had a word, Sheila, that really kind of spun around my word, and I was hoping you could share that. Can I? Thank you.
Yes, sir. I kind of like holding this when my voice doesn't boom. That's cool. Oh, okay. So yesterday, I was praying, and I got to admit I go in and out of, I don't want to say discouragement, but a sense of, God, what are you doing? And I can't call that discouragement. I can't really say I'm questioning, but it's like, okay, something's just not right here. So God, tell me something. And so I felt like he said, and he usually doesn't talk to me in addresses. I got to be honest that when he gave me an address, I'm like, was that you, God? Because he said Ezekiel 3:9, and it was so specific. And he doesn't talk to me like that. I'm going, okay. And so I went to Ezekiel 3:9, and before I even opened, I said, okay, Lord, if it's from you, let it come with clarity because I figured it was going to be one of those really weird, obscured scriptures like he stubbed his toe on a cedar tree or something like that. And so anyway, so the funny thing, it was exactly that. No, it wasn't. But anyway, so it was Ezekiel 3:9 says. I'm gonna try to read it without my glasses. Like I can't pronounce this. Help me, English person. Adamant. Adamant. Adamant stone, harder than flint, I have made your forehead. Do not be afraid of them, nor be dismayed at their looks. They, though they are a rebellious house, and I felt like that God was saying. I just saw us like these stone, what I saw was stones of accusation starting to come and striking us. And it was like, it was interesting because when stone hits flint just right, what happens? Sparks. I didn't see fire, I saw sparks. And like sparks like in More. You know, it's just a lot of activity, a lot of stuff like that. And so, and then I felt like God told me, oh, by the way, he had me look up the word that I can't pronounce, adamant, which is really, I believe, very pertinent. I am convinced that Google is related to Leviathan. It messes me up all the time. What's that? Okay, a person who is Adam. Well, anyway, it basically means I lost the definition. It was a perfect definition. That was not the definition. But anyway, it was just that unmoving, not changing of one's mind, and I think that's really important that because there is a lot of changing of mind now because of what's going on, and yeah, and so it's just like so when we're yielding to okay, Lord. Set my forehead like flint. It's make me an unyielding stone, one that is not going to change my mind. Basically, yeah, Lord, it's like in this time we could be hard headed. Yes, it's like we're not going to change our mind. We're not going to be swayed by and I keep getting scriptures about winds of the north. That the and they're all and those winds of the north are about war. Um, I won't say adversity, but war. And I keep hearing, well, I won't get into that yet. But anyway, so God told me to go. When He gave me the word, He told me to not stop there, but to go into the numbers. And those that know me know that I love numbers. And not numerology, but I do love the biblical numbers. They all mean something. So he told me to look at all the numbers for 3-9. So the first one, 39. This is really significant. 39 is disease. And it's only speaking 39 as for disease is only speaking once, and this is so pertinent to today. I mean, I'm talking about February 20th. It's so pertinent about what Obama, I mean, I'm sorry, I keep saying Obama and I keep saying Biden, but Biden, it's all the same thing. Biden. Well, Biden, I swear I can't be a Freudian slip. There's something going on there. Okay, so Biden, so what Biden is doing, this is really, really, today, this is really pertinent. Okay, so it's only spoken, 39 is only spoken one time in the Bible in 2nd Chronicles 16:12. And um Asa in the 39 years of his reign was diseased in his feet until his disease was exceedingly great. Yet in his disease he sought not the Lord, but the physicians. One of the things Biden is doing today is that he is reconciling with who, and Dr. Fauci is now our go-to person, our spokesperson. It's a physician. It's like it's all he's seeking out, not God for what's going on, but the physicians. So to me, is that off course?
The reason that Asa got the disease in his feet is because he was wrongly aligned. And today, this morning, I got. Want to repeat that? Oh, the reason Asa got the disease in his feet. Come on in, Terry. Was because he was wrongly aligned. And this morning, I mean, actually, for several days, I've been getting the scripture out of Ezekiel 44:4 and on about the cleansing of the temple, the vileness. And so this morning, after going to bed, weeping and crying out to God for the nation last night, I could hardly contain myself. It was emotion, but it was also a war. And I realized that God is creating in us that warrior spirit for this season that we're in. And when he started talking to me then and then early this morning about the people's house, the temple of God, if you were, is been defiled and is in defilement right now. So the reason that we have to be on the wall for the fight over Jezebel is because we're called to take this to the nation as the state of Oregon, who's been called as the people to take down Jezebel, is because we are called to the nation to go and cleanse the house of the Lord. The White House has to be cleansed from Jezebel because it is now defiled.
Oh no, that was, I think tag teaming is good. That because we only prophesy in part. So I only had a part of it. So 3 and 9 are also really interesting. 3 and 9 are both about completeness, but 3 is resurrection and divine completeness and perfection, and 9 is the fruit of the Spirit, divine completeness. So I thought, I'm not quite sure what that means, but it feels real pertinent. It feels like that there's substance there. I also on the feet. What I was also what I was also hearing about the feet that kind of goes along with that is that there is a lie that the enemy would love us to believe, and that the feet of this nation is crippled. And the feet of the nation that will be diseased and crippled, that part is those that are wrongfully aligned, those that are rightfully aligned. You know, there's hope, there's promise. We're not going down with the ship. You know, and so he doesn't want us to believe we're going down with the ship.
And as soon as you spoke about 3:9 and 39, I thought of the 39 stripes, and so the healing of the nation is going to come through that. As that it's not just going to be one kind of healing; it's going to be an overall, because God doesn't do anything halfway. So He's encouraging us to come to war because He's already finished the job, for one thing, and He has our back. And so now it's time for us to make the stand, just like Jesus did, that we're making a stand. And He's at the temple, and He's turning over the money changers. This is about a reorganization, if you will, of a nation and her pride, her integrity, who she really was meant to be, because we are called to rearrange what the enemy meant for evil and bring forth. I've been praying this probably for 40 years or 50 years. God, raise up a righteous government. And he is in that process, and we have to get aligned with him so we're not misaligned like Asa was and get some kind of a disease and fall. So as our alignment comes together, we're walking in tandem with the Lord and with what he's doing in the earth so that we might be the head and not the tail. He's revamping. It's like he's done this flip in the spirit. And 2021 is the year to take possession back of the temple, of the White House, and that all defilement will be dumped out, poured out, that he is bringing us back to a clean house.
Let me say something. You know, and 3 plus 9 is 12, and 12 is God's government. And we're praying that God's government replaces man's government. That God's government comes down in the White House and the bad goes and God's government comes.
Just a quick thing. I was getting 333 last night. And, I felt it was for the promised land. It's what God has for us. And I messaged my two prayer warrior friends. We've been praying over 333 for probably 15 years. It was a important address for us, and so we've been praying over 333 and 9. And then I realized this morning when I looked at my messages that I had messaged both of them at 333 this morning. So I knew it was significant.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt, I may need your help with this mic as I read something, if you wouldn't mind. So there's some encouragement to where we're going to. Yes, we're going to war, but we're going to war on the offense. We're not going to war on the defense, right? And so out of 1 Samuel 15, when David is going after the Philistines, he's going after them to recapture the things that had been stolen from him. And that's part of where we're going. This is offensive war, not defensive war. And so we're going to recapture all. It says when David inquired of the Lord about the Philistines, it said, the Lord answered him and said, "Pursue, for you shall surely overtake all." And that's been the consistent theme. And I feel like what the Lord is saying to us is that because we're going to stand on the wall and we're going to come out of the cave and we're going to preach and we're going to pray and we're going to bring this prophetic word into the earthly realm, I feel like what the Lord's saying is that this is the kind of phase that then bursts people raising people from the dead, seeing signs, wonders, and miracles, the supernatural works of Jesus being imparted into who we are. And I think that this is part of our training ground of seeing the supernatural that we've been praying for to come into the world. And so when we make choices like this, it's not easy. We're all embarking on something together today. It's not going to be easy. We know we've got a timeline that we're going to be doing this through February, and we feel like the Lord's given us a word about this, and we need to pursue it until we've overtaken everything. And I feel like an important thing to recognize is that the Lord is wanting to completely dethrone the Jezebel spirit throughout our nation. And one of the things that Jehu never did, like you bring up a lot, Dottie, is that he didn't take down every altar. And so I believe that the Lord is looking for us to be able to take down every altar, to not let anything stand. And we're starting a 39-day journey now. Believe tonight, 39 days from today until the end of February. Did you know that? Wow. Yeah, 39 days. And what's... Yeah, 3 times 3 is 9. Yep. Exactly. And remember what I said about this year, the number 9 was really highlighted to me because the number 9 means judgment and salvation, which judgment to some is salvation to others, right? It's the same coin, the same thing that God releases will be salvation for some and judgment for others. And so the number 9 is really important that we understand how God's judgment and salvation works. And he's showing us something this year. I think we're all going to get a real good theology lesson this year. I really do. But what I want to share is that I believe that this is the training ground that God's giving us to be able to move in powerful measure, that everybody would be moving in signs, wonders, and miracles, because what it's doing is it's building our faith. And it's saying we're going to stand and we're going to stand and we're going to stand. And what that does is it gets you into a place where you can move in the signs and wonders and miracles of God, which has also been prophesied. I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. It wasn't just that Trump would be reelected. It was also that there would be revival in the land, that justice would be done. It was multi-level prophetic words that were being released. And so we're going after all of that. And so the very thing that we're looking at as a trial is the thing that's going to make us into the people that God can bring revival through. And so I think it's an exciting time, and I think your word about the flint, the forehead's like flint, and when a stone hits flint, sparks start. I think that's exactly what it is. I think that the tribulations and the trials of pushing through these next 39 days is going to produce in us the spark that's necessary for revival. So I look forward to coming back to this video multiple times over the next 39 days to just kind of keep myself on track and remember what the Lord did on this day, this inauguration day, this false inauguration day of 2021. And I just want to read a word that Veronica West released this morning, who she's been releasing things left and right all day today. Would you hold this while I read it real quick? She posted this 9 hours ago. America, this is a crucible of faith. For in this moment of great testing and trial, will it be credited to you as righteousness, or will fear make you forfeit the great blessing and promise of a kingdom inheritance? Remember what I said earlier about the Lord when he woke me up. He said, are you going to be the prophets who come against the prophets of Baal, or are you going to be in the caves? We're prophets either way. But one of them became the prophets who were hiding in the caves, and the other ones was the one who inherited the promises of the kingdom. America, early hours of this morning, I was weeping for you and for the destiny of the nation before the throne room. I think it's interesting that God's raising up prophets this hour that aren't from America. I find it very interesting. I'm following most of the prophets that I'm following right now who are speaking, I think, really right-on words aren't from America. It tells you what's going on. There's a lot that the Lord's doing. I have never experienced such a ferocious burden over a nation before. As I knelt before the Lord, I was barely able to stand under the weight of what I could feel in the realm of the Spirit, the warring and the raging between life and death. But the spirit of intercession and weeping came over me, and as I lay in that place, suddenly I heard the Spirit say, my beloved America, fear not, for my eye is upon you. Look to me in this hour of great testing, for this is a crucible of faith for a nation that is now standing in the valley of decision. But watch and pray, for in this moment of great testing and trial, will it be credited to you as righteousness, or will fear make you forfeit the great blessing and promise of a kingdom inheritance? As I heard and wrote down those words, I was suddenly caught up in a vision where again I saw Abraham standing on Mount Moriah, and his beloved Isaac was strapped to the firewood on the altar. I watched as Abraham was weeping as he lifted up the knife, about to take the life of his only son Isaac, a long awaited for promise. The atmosphere in the vision was palpable. As I could feel the weight of his glory, as I was looking at Abraham in the vision, suddenly I saw the nation of America standing before an altar. And as I looked at the altar, I heard these words, the altar of awakening. And then I saw a weeping remnant standing before the altar of awakening, and strapped upon the altar was a sacrifice. The sacrifice was President Trump lying upon the wood. And as I looked at President Trump, I heard these words, the enemy sought for a scapegoat to defile the sacrifice at the altar of awakening. But I, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, sought for a sacrifice of promise to purify the hearts of men of idol worship and of self. This is so good. Suddenly I saw Abraham again in a vision, Abraham with a knife in his hand, ready to take the life of Isaac. And as I looked at the knife in Abraham's hand, I heard these words, at the altar of awakening, the sword of my word will be in the hands of my remnant warriors that will strike at the very heart of the enemy that has sought to defile the sacrifice with a scapegoat. Now you know what to do with that sword, Nancy. And as I heard these words, I began to pray fervently for the nation. And suddenly I saw an angel of the Lord appear in the vision, and the numbers 22:11 appeared before me and began to swirl in the realm of the spirit. Brady and I saw the numbers 22:11 all over yesterday. So I find it really interesting that yeah. And I looked at those numbers 22:11. I knew by the spirit of revelation that the Lord was revealing something prophetically significant to me. And Holy Spirit said to me, Genesis 22:11, where the angel says to Abraham as he's about to kill Isaac, Abraham, Abraham, here I am. Do not lay a hand on that boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Then Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And Holy Spirit quickened that verse to me. And I saw a praying remnant in the nation of America, kneeling before the altar of awakening with the sword of the Lord in their hands, which was lifted up. And I heard these words, look, for there is a ram caught in the thicket. And as I looked up in the vision, I saw it was a large male goat. And I heard the words, the thief will be caught and will pay back 7 times. Right? And as I heard these words, the numbers 22:11 kept swirling, and I saw the male goat being laid upon the altar, and I watched as the sword in the hands of the remnant was driven down into the heart of the goat ram. And I heard these words, America, in this hour, I call you to come to the altar of awakening in full surrender. I call you to lay down the sacrifice of self and bear and great promise upon the altar of awakening. But fear not, for there is a ram in my plan which has been prepared for such a time as this. Watch and pray, for my justice and judgment will be executed at the altar of awakening as my word goes forth to pierce and penetrate the darkness. For hope and healing, victory and vindication will be found at the altar of awakening. The Hebrew word 22:11 means to raise up, lift up, set up, to impale, or to hang. So it's that judgment and salvation. It's the both sides. Raise up, lift up, or to impale and to hang. Isn't that interesting? Wow. So what I want to say about that, thank you, Matt. I probably wasn't very comfortable. Thank you. Anyway, so what I wanted to say about that is that I feel like this word, again, really mirrored what I was feeling this morning. The Lord's giving us these multiple biblical stories, and they all have the same thing in common. Where is your faith? Are you going to choose radical faith in this hour, or are you going to choose to hide in this hour? And in each of these stories, the story of Elijah with the prophets of Baal and this story about Abraham and his son Isaac, it required radical faith, radical obedience, and radical belief that God would be God. And so I feel like the Lord's saying to us as a company that for the next 39 days, we get to operate as a military company to strike the forces that we need to strike, to go after the things that we need to go after, to not be afraid, to go forward in victory, because I believe the Lord's going to use this little house called FireHouse to deal a death blow to the enemy and the Capitol. Woo! All right. Thank you, Lord.